Hey, you didn't answer my texts.
For a short backstory, I have PTSD from the father of my child. I was 16 and he was 24. I stayed with who we'll call Joey, not his real name, but go with it, for 5 years and had a son at 21. During our time together, he had blackouts and could not control his emotions, was very manipulative and abusive, as well as very insecure. I have a beautiful 9-year-old son out of it all, and I've been separated since my son was 2 months old. Also, on November 7th of 2018, I found my friend dead in his bed. He'd been there for 2 days. Shoes on, laptop in front of him, lying on his bed, face deep purple, face dropped onto his shoulder. At first I thought he was dirty from working or something, and then I got closer and removed his toque and felt his neck. He was cold and stiff already. Rigor mortis. I realized it was blood pooled in his face and fingertips. I already had slight insomnia, and now I don't sleep right at all. Online dating for now is the norm, almost expected. So one day on social media, I happened to come across a B-grade actor, legit account. I decided I'd add him. To my surprise, he accepted. A big mistake. Within 36 hours or less, I had over 50 invited, 100 messages, and over 50 naked photos. It was sickening. Being the hermit I am, though, I did kind of like the attention. But I did pick a few of the accounts to actually private message, and eventually I met who we'll call Bill from, I'll say, Texas. He covered his face, always typed in all capitals, and funny squiggles like screaming all the time. Eventually, I convinced him to video call me and text me. We were friends, nothing sexual or intimate. This was until after November 2018. He did admit to me that he had an assault charge and could not come to my country. I even paid for a police background check, and he told the truth about who he was and where he lived. After losing friends who I realize now were never my friends over Christmas, I decided finally that I would plan a trip to Texas to visit Bill. To be honest, I felt like I was convinced he was a good person to meet by this. Say someone had a bag of money or cinnamon buns. You got there. It's a bag with a bomb covered in dog shit. So, with my own money, my own timed planned babysitter, I planned a week trip. Stupidly, I thought it'd be a good idea to save money by staying at Bill's house and not booking a hotel. So, here I was on a 6-hour flight to Texas. Crazy, right? I arrived excited, jogging to meet him. The first sign that I ignored, he was wearing the same clothes I saw in the video, dirty and grungy like he made no effort to clean up. His eyes kept spinning like maybe he was high or tired, but I ignored it. We took the elevator to the parking lot level, and he said his car was at, but he couldn't find the car for half an hour. I was pretty unimpressed and getting upset. Even worse, the car was sticky dirty and reeked of a bottle deposit. So we got to his house after over an hour. He lived just outside the city. His only nowhere neighbors were an acre or two away. Actually, the house was really cute. Brick and wood, 3.5 acres. On the plus side, it seemed sweet, so I walked up the stairs, forgetting stuff in the car. He was so focused on me, he didn't even offer to carry my bag. Quick background. The man who I came to meet was 14 years clean of heroin. 2 years ago, he was bedridden with something that he had to take to cleanse the toxins from his drug abuse earlier in his life. Literally had craters missing from his chest and buttocks and legs. His armpits looked as if he landed on a grenade and survived. Now on painkillers so strong, they had the same effects as heroin or morphine. He had been up on his feet and working full-time for 2 years. When I entered the home, I was mortified. Stains everywhere. Garbage everywhere. It smelled like a dog. There was no dog in sight. Dead scorpions everywhere. Now, remember, I'm stuck there. I couldn't afford an early plane ticket home, so I tried to look past it to get to know this person behind the dirt, I guess. 2 days there, and it was time to travel to a famous bombing site. We went to a local dive bar. It was okay. By the third day, we were somehow talking, but he put his head on my forehead, and he pushed all his weight into my head, felt like maybe he was falling asleep while he was talking to me. He was saying that he would do anything for me, and prove that he is worth it, when he knows he really doesn't deserve me. Also, for 2 days, every 10 minutes he would randomly say, "I know you hate me." It was strange, and I had to reassure him constantly. I fed into some of the conversations here and there to see how his mind really worked. And he had a pregnancy fetish, like drinking breast milk, even watching girls do things with animals. I was also horrified when he showed me his tornado shelter with over 100 dead scorpions in it, and he made a joke he was going to keep me there and milk me like a cow. Then he pulled a black gold ring with purple stones on it and shoved it onto my ring finger, and I was baffled and speechless. I kept it on for a day because I didn't really want to talk about it. But then I got sick after another 48 hours because I was stupid enough to take a quarter one of his painkillers. I would have been fine with an Advil. But I was stuck there and didn't want to straight up say why I wanted to leave. He started calling me a terrible mother for not choosing him, and started stating step by step what I was going to do with my life if he was not my husband. It was crazy, and I got mad. By this time, I had about 16 hours before my plane ride home, and every time I brought up a hotel, he convinced me it was okay to stay. He actually really emasculated himself by constantly asking what I needed, but in a way that was suffocating. He kept saying that he would do anything I told him to do. Anything. It was disturbing. I didn't feel too much in danger, though, until the yelling started. I haven't heard yelling in over a year, and keep toxic people out of my life. It was a fear that I thought I would never feel again. He was depressed and liked the dark, and he wanted to sleep on the couch, which was fine with me. I didn't sleep the whole time I was there anyway. Then, one time after yelling at me, he went to the living room. I broke down bawling, weeping, afraid, tired, hungry, and too sick for 2 days before that. He came into the room, grabbed my hand, and just started pulling towards the darkness of the hallway. It was pitch black in the middle of the country, with only one small lamp on in the bedroom, which he had complained about me needing to have on the whole time I was there. As I was walking with him to the dark, the walls, Bill's arm, and face started to drip, melting away like water or ooze, and it wasn't dark anymore. In fact, I wasn't even in Texas. I was in Canada with Joey, the father of my child, and he was gripping my wrist so hard and had those full, black-pupiled, dead eyes. I freaked, screamed, and pulled back. "Where are you taking me? What's happening?" I was hyperventilating. I couldn't breathe, and everything was dark again. He sat me down on the couch, handed me a pipe with some marijuana in it, and said that he smokes it for stress and anxiety. I did, and immediately I could breathe again after a few breaths in a paper bag. Yeah, a paper bag, just like the movies. The worst part is, when I finally went back to the airport, during the ride, he kept saying all of the horrible things he could have done, stating he could have burned my passport and my luggage, or just ditched me out on the highway. By now I was screaming and crying, and I said, "Please, just take me to the airport." It was 3 a.m. or so. I needed to be there by 5. He lost his wallet on the trip to the airport, and after running around a few places checking to find it, I could feel like I was waiting for it. He looked over at me and asked, "Did you take my wallet? I know how you women can be." He wanted to see my purse and said, "Open it, show me." I was pissed off, and if he knew me at all, he would never accuse me of stealing. I proceeded to open my purse, and then in a jolt of anger, violently dumped the whole thing on the floor, and turned on the light of my cell phone as we looked around the floor of his car, and I aimed it around. "Is it there, you sick fuck? Fuck you!" He had a guilty look on his face, and looked like he felt really bad accusing me of stealing. I just proceeded to clean up my stuff, and he drove to the airport. He also refused to take the ring back that he had given me. As soon as I was on the plane, he posted on his social media very detailed descriptions of how he was going to headbutt the face of the next woman who tried to get close to him, and just watch the blood fall down her face. So I deleted him and blocked him on everything. Listen, never meet anyone online without a good escape plan. I'm going to stick to my own country from now on. Let's also say, I don't go online very much anymore. Last year, 2018, was a very busy year for me, meaning that I had little to no time to meet any girls. Due to my busy schedule, I decided to make a Tinder account. I've never had any experience with such app or online dating, and I didn't actually plan on meeting up with a random girl to go on a blind date or anything. I just wanted to see what the fuss was about, and if that shit actually worked. So, the app still being something new to me, I matched with this really pretty girl. She seemed short, light-skinned, and had a nice smile. Her account wasn't a catfish or any sort of fake profile. It seemed genuine and legit. Anyway, I know that I didn't actually want to hit it off with any girl in this manner, but she was very hot, and I said, fuck it. So I slid into her DMs with a simple, hey. A couple of hours went by, and we got each other's Snapchat users and phone numbers. We exchanged Snapchat photos, so with that said, there's no way that her Tinder account was a fake. I felt better knowing that for some reason. She said that she lived in a city that was about 25 or 30 miles north of mine. I had nothing planned for the next day, and neither did she, so we decided to meet up at her house to mess around. The next day came, and we planned to meet up around 10:30 that night. The neighboring city where she was from was a 30 to 45 minute drive from my place, so around 10ish I decided to start driving over. As I was driving over, I got a phone call from her telling me to go over at a later time, around midnight. I didn't mind, and since I had friends who lived in her city, I paid them a visit while I waited for her. 11:45 rolled around, and I started to drive to her place. My friends didn't know what I was up to. They just thought I popped in to visit them randomly. So, this girl sends me her address, and at first the address that she had sent me led me to this upper-class suburban neighborhood. I reached the address, and it was close to what I would describe as a white mansion. I called her to tell her that I was parked in her driveway, and I asked her to come outside so I could assure myself that I was at the right place. She said, I don't see you. Are you sure you followed the directions? Well, to avoid any more fuck-ups, she sent me her current location through iMessage. At first I found it odd, but I followed the directions to the location anyway. So, midnight rolled up, and I was on my way to her current location, which was actually kind of far from the address that she had originally sent me. As I was driving, the directions were telling me to drive off the path and into a dirt road surrounded by cornfields. This spooked me a little because I was now in the middle of nowhere, about 10 minutes from any civilization. Red flags started to go off in my head, but I ignored them because there's no way her account could have been a setup. I'd seen her pictures on Snapchat, and you can't Photoshop those as far as I'm aware. So, after driving through a dark-ass dirt road through this cornfield, the directions led me to a broken-down old house. It looked uninhabitable. There were no cars outside or in the driveway, and the only light I saw on was the porch light. I called the girl to tell her that I was outside, and she replied with, "Okay, I'll be right out." On a side note, I'm a pretty big dude, and I train every day. I'm not intimidated by others, but there are some situations where you're helpless and have no option but to evade for fear of your life. So I'm waiting by my car, and I see this figure come out the front door. And it was dressed like a fucking nun. Black veil, long black dress, voodoo charms, and she's also holding a fucking voodoo doll on her left hand. I was pretty spooked out, but I thought it was just a prank. So I gave it a few seconds for the cameras to pop out, but the person just stood there, and I slowly started to realize that this wasn't a prank, because a few seconds later, I saw another figure in a similar black outfit, peeking out of a door, and starting to make a run towards me with a fucking machete. I didn't even bother trying to fight back because I knew I was going to end up gutted or skinned alive by these psychos, so I immediately jumped in the car and floored it the fuck out of there. I then heard a gunshot a few seconds later behind me, and I'm in my car screaming prayers with tears in my eyes because I'm hoping to drive away with my life. Her number then kept calling me as soon as I left. I blocked it, and then another number started to call me, and I blocked that as well. I ended up staying over at my friend's house that night, and I explained everything that took place, and he wanted to go check it out together with our group of friends, but I was too terrified to even go back there. I called the police, and they went to go check it out, but the place was abandoned by the time they got there. They said that the address had been vacant for years, so they simply made a report out of it. Whoever it was never found. The whole thing was a sick setup to begin with. The girl was planning on luring me so they could do God knows what. I deleted my Tinder account. I'm pretty sure it works if you're only looking to get laid, but somehow I had the worst luck in the first time I ever decided to use it. Don't ever meet a stranger somewhere that isn't public. Shit can always go sideways.